What really started World War I? If you said the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, you're not wrong, but you're also not entirely right. That single shot in Sarajevo was just the spark that lit a massive, continent-sized powder keg. The real story is far more complex, a web of ambition, fear, and rivalry that had been building for decades. Today, we're going to unravel that web and discover the true, deeper reasons behind the Great War. It's a story that involves more than just one bullet. It's a story about empires, alliances, and a race for power that changed the world forever. Let's rewind the clock, not to 1914, but to the late 1800s. Europe was a chessboard of great powers. You had Great Britain, with its colossal navy and sprawling empire. You had France, still bitter about its defeat to Germany in 1871 and desperate to reclaim its lost territories of Alsace-Lorraine. And then you had the newcomer, the recently unified German Empire. Germany was an industrial powerhouse, growing at a dizzying pace. Its economy was booming, its army was the best in Europe, and its leader, Kaiser Wilhelm II, was ambitious and, frankly, a bit insecure. He looked at Britain's empire with envy and famously said Germany needed its place in the sun. This ambition set Germany on a collision course with the established powers. It wasn't just about one country wanting more, it was about a fundamental shift in the balance of power in Europe, and that made everyone nervous. The old order was being challenged, and no one knew what the new one would look like. To understand the tension, we need to talk about the tangled mess of alliances that turned a regional conflict into a world war. Think of it like a schoolyard. Germany, worried about being surrounded by enemies, formed the Triple Alliance with Austria, Hungary, and Italy. They promised to defend each other if attacked. In response, France, Russia, and later Britain formed their own club, the Triple Entente. On the surface, these alliances were for defense, a way to keep the peace. But in reality, they created a tripwire system. A conflict between any two nations could now pull everyone else in. It was like a continental game of dominoes. If Austria-Hungary fell, Germany felt it had to prop it up. If Russia mobilized to help its Slavic cousins in Serbia, France was obligated to back up Russia. These treaties, meant to create security, actually guaranteed that any small fire would quickly become an uncontrollable inferno. Now, let's add another explosive ingredient to this mix: imperialism. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were the peak of the scramble for Africa and Asia. European powers were carving up the globe, competing for colonies, resources, and prestige. This competition wasn't just happening far away, it fueled rivalries back home. Germany, being a latecomer to the empire game, felt left out. Britain and France had already claimed the best territories. This colonial rivalry intensified the naval arms race. Particularly between Britain and Germany, Britain's identity was tied to its naval supremacy. Britannia rules the waves, right? So when Germany started building a massive fleet of modern battleships, the dreadnoughts, Britain saw it as a direct threat to its empire and its very survival. This wasn't just about ships, it was a high-stakes competition for global dominance. Every new battleship launched in a German shipyard sent a wave of paranoia across the English Channel, pushing the two nations further apart and closer to conflict. And we can't forget the fourth major factor: nationalism. This wasn't just about patriotism, the healthy love for one's country. This was an aggressive, competitive nationalism that proclaimed my country is better than your country. And France. It was about revenge against Germany. In Germany, it was about proving its newfound greatness. But where nationalism was most explosive was in the Balkans, the so-called powder keg of Europe. This region was a messy patchwork of different ethnic and religious groups, all squished together under the rule of the aging Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires. Groups like the Serbs, Croats, and Bosnians dreamed of having their own independent nations. Serbia, already independent, saw itself as the leader of a future South Slav state, or Yugoslavia. This directly threatened Austria-Hungary, which had a large Slavic population and feared it would be torn apart by these nationalist movements. It was this intense Serbian nationalism that fueled the secret societies, like the Black Hand, which armed and trained the assassins of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. For them, killing the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne was a blow for freedom. For Austria-Hungary, it was the last straw. So, let's bring it all back to that fateful day in June 1914. Gavrilo Princip, a young Serbian nationalist, fires the shots that kill the Archduke. Austria-Hungary, seeing its chance to crush Serbian nationalism once and for all, issues an impossible ultimatum to Serbia. They knew Serbia couldn't accept it. Why were they so bold? Because Germany had given them a blank check, promising unconditional support for whatever action they took. This is a crucial point. Without Germany's backing, Austria-Hungary might have been more cautious. When Serbia rejected parts of the ultimatum, Austria-Hungary declared war. Now the dominoes start to fall, just as the alliance system predicted. Russia, seeing itself as the protector of the Slavic Serbs, begins to mobilize its massive army. Germany sees Russian mobilization as a direct threat and declares war on Russia. Because of the alliance between France and Russia, Germany knows it's now in a two-front war. Their military plan, the Schlieffen Plan, called for a lightning-fast strike to knock out France first by invading through neutral Belgium, and then turning to fight Russia. But invading Belgium brought the final piece into the puzzle: Great Britain. Britain had a treaty to protect Belgian neutrality, but more importantly, it could not allow Germany to control the Channel ports and dominate the continent. So, on August 4, 1914, Britain declared war on Germany. Within a few short weeks, a regional dispute in the Balkans had engulfed all of Europe's great powers. The assassination was the trigger, absolutely. But it wasn't the cause. The real causes were the deep-seated rivalries and systemic problems that had been simmering for years. The German ambition for a place in the sun, the rigid and unforgiving alliance system that removed any room for diplomacy, the bitter competition for colonies and empire, and the fiery, unstoppable force of nationalism. Each one of these factors was a log on the fire. The assassination was just the match. The leaders of 1914 weren't necessarily evil men who wanted war. Many of them were trapped by their own military plans, by their promises to allies, and by years of public opinion that had been whipped into a nationalistic frenzy. They thought it would be a short, glorious war, over by Christmas. They couldn't have been more wrong. So the next time someone tells you World War I started because an archduke was shot, you can tell them the real story is so much bigger. It's a cautionary tale about how ambition, fear, and a failure of diplomacy can lead to catastrophe. It reminds us that the seeds of conflict are often sown long before the first shots are ever fired. Understanding these deep roots is essential, not just for understanding history, but for navigating the tensions of our own world today. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time.